What is scoliosis of the spine? Scoliosis is the development of an unnatural sideways spinal curvature, and the curvature needs to also have a rotational component for it to be considered scoliosis. So scoliosis is actually a bend and a twist, and the rotation is typically into the cavity of the scoliosis. The curvature needs to be measured a minimum of 10 degrees or greater using a Cobb Angle analysis to actually be diagnosed as scoliosis. A Cobb Angle is actually a measurement taken during X-ray. It's the gold standard in assessing and measuring scoliosis. And it involves drawing lines from the most tilted vertebra on the top of the curve to the most tilted vertebra in the bottom of the curve, and comparing the tilt of these vertebrae by drawing intersecting lines and measuring that angle. The Cobb Angle tells me how far of alignment the spine is, meaning the larger the angle, the more severe the scoliosis, the smaller the angle, the less severe the scoliosis. This angle is what classifies the scoliosis based upon severity. Scoliosis can range widely in severity from mild, moderate to severe, and very severe. Mild scoliosis are Cobb angles that are between 10 and 25 degrees. Moderate scoliosis is when curves start to break 10 degrees but are less than 40 degrees. Severe scoliosis is greater than 40 degrees, and then I like to use a fourth category, very severe scoliosis, and this is when curves break 80 degrees. Now, where a scoliosis is diagnosed doesn't necessarily mean where it's going to end up, because unfortunately, scoliosis is a progressive condition, which we'll talk about in a moment. There are different types of scoliosis, and the most common type is something called idiopathic scoliosis. Now, idiopathic scoliosis is mostly associated with something called adolescent idiopathic scoliosis. And adolescent means it's just diagnosed in the adolescent stage. However, anybody with adolescent idiopathic scoliosis is eventually going to have adult idiopathic scoliosis, and idiopathic scoliosis in adolescence more than likely was there in their juvenile years. It just means the time that it was initially diagnosed. Adolescent idiopathic scoliosis is when it's diagnosed between 10 and 18 years of age. This is 80% of all diagnosis cases are diagnosed as idiopathic. The remaining 20% are associated with known causes, and they break down into other categories. Neuromuscular scoliosis is about another 5 to 10% of cases. This is caused when there's a larger neuromuscular condition. These neuromuscular conditions can have a wide variety of causes as well. Most common types are something like cerebral palsy, Marfan syndrome, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, conditions that affect the connective tissue of the body, causing either too contractures or too much laxity, which can be associated with the causation of scoliosis. Outside of a connective tissue disorder, there's also neurological conditions within the spinal cord itself that could be associated with the development of scoliosis. Now, the majority of these neuromuscular cases, the scoliosis is treated very similar to idiopathic scoliosis cases because we treat the scoliosis as a structural problem. Another type is something called congenital scoliosis. And congenital scoliosis is truly when you're born with scoliosis. And this is when one of the vertebrae of the spine develops as a malformed bone in utero, and you're born with a spine that doesn't have all the bones are made symmetrically or developed symmetrically. And one of the bones develops into a mal-shaped bone called a hemivertebra. And this hemivertebra causes a curvature to occur. Now, the last type, which can occur in the adult stage, it's something called degenerative scoliosis or de novo scoliosis. Degenerative scoliosis is when the spine has a shift in the spine that occurs maybe in a young adult and remains uncorrected. And this uncorrected small shift causes an accelerative degenerative aging of that area, and that asymmetrical degeneration causes the curve to occur in that area. This is most commonly occurs in the lumbar spine, and it's more commonly seen in females, typically post 50 years of age. Now, the problem with all of these types of scoliosis is that scoliosis, unfortunately, is progressive, and it's progressive in two main stages of life. In adolescence, during growth, because whatever causes the curve initiates this structural deformity or structural problem that can progress and accelerate its development during adolescent growth spurts. So between that 10 and 18 years of age is when curves tend to progress the most quickly in this growth phase. And then also in later stage life, plus 50, 60 years of age, as the curve sits there and gains slow speed, and as the patients become older, as the spine becomes more degenerated, the curve can start progressing quickly in later stage life. So we see progressive cases occurring in adolescence and also in this later stage of life. Now, in the middle, curves still progress, but they just progress very slowly. And the slow progression is typically not normally looked at, and people are just not paying attention to it because it's not normally causing a lot of pain or lots of problems. But unfortunately, the curve is still progressing. So in almost every case of scoliosis, you're going to see progression. What we don't know is how fast or how severe the curve is going to progress. Conservative non-surgical treatment works towards impacting the condition on a structural level, really taking the curve and making it smaller, so therefore the curves are less likely to progress. And this is normally done through a series of treatments using chiropractic care, core strengthening, and also asymmetrical scoliosis exercises, even corrective bracing. We use many different components in a coordinated manner to get the curve to respond. Structural reduction is the best way to impact its progressive nature because we know it's progressing based upon size. As an adolescent or as an adult, the biggest factor that's going to determine how fast your curve is going to progress is the size of curve. So the best way to alter its progressive nature of scoliosis is to impact the size and make it smaller. So with early detection and early treatment, there are normally less limitations that we can achieve as a result of the treatment. So treating a curve smaller and treating a curve younger will always produce better results. And that's the rule of thumb. Smaller curves always respond better. Younger patients always respond better. Now, we do get results with bigger curves and we do get results with older patients, but all things being equal, the smaller the curve, the younger the patients, the better results. That's why if you're going to find a curve early and doing nothing and just watching and waiting to see what's going to happen, to see how the scoliosis is going to progress, normally means less results, more limitations, and more effects the scoliosis is going to have on your body. This is why I believe starting treatment as close to the time of diagnosis is by far that produces the greatest outcome for a patient in the future. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this information helpful. If you'd like to hear about other topics and information on scoliosis, type in the comments below and let us know. And finally, subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified of when we publish content. Thanks.